All right, welcome back to the show, folks. It wasn't exactly the death penalty for Penn State, but it was awful close. We're here with Scott Gray, WTIC, whatever you are, TICAM. You know who you are.
I know who I am.
A six-time Connecticut Sportscaster of the Year, right?
Just like I wrote it, Stan.
Reese Norris, prominent attorney. All right, guys, we've been here before. You were from the beginning with the Jerry Sandusky trial. Yeah. Now the sanctions are in, NCAA. Pretty stiff stuff. $60 million fine. The loss of 10 scholarships in each of the next 2 recruiting classes, bowl ban for 4 seasons, all that bowl money, and then all of the victories from 1998 to 2011, 111 victories taken away from Joe Paterno. If it's not the death penalty, it is real close. Your thoughts?
Oh, I think it's worse than the death penalty, and I think it was well deserved. The death penalty would have shut down the program for a year, and the reason they call it the death penalty is because you take a very established program, shut them down for a year, and they've got to start all over again, and they're starting at the bottom. Well, this puts Penn State even further down than that, because this pretty much takes them out of commission for 4 years.
I would say for 8 years, right?
Well, actually,
right?
if you want to be realistic, I think it's going to be decades before they see the light of day again.
Right. See, people, it's big-time football, so when you lose 4 years, right, you've got to recruit and replenish.
Right. And
it takes another 4 years to groom those freshmen. So you're talking about 8 years. It could be a decade.
There are a lot of shoes that are still going to fall. Obviously, when you lose the scholarships, and when you're talking about initial scholarships, what that means is each year the scholarships you can give out to an incoming class. Now, normally you get 25. They're down to 15 a year. So they lose 40 scholarships over that time. That's a lot. They had one of the top recruiting classes in the country this year. Already 2 of their 14 recruits have said we're going elsewhere, while other recruits that were considering Penn State have said they've fallen off of my list. Right. So this whole thing is going to be very problematic for Penn State. I give high marks to the NCAA for everybody getting together and saying we can't go by this usual snail's pace NCAA infractions committee's rules. We've got to institute something unprecedented. And they gave Mark Emmett unprecedented powers, and I think he came down with a very judicious ruling.
If you're the Paterno family, and I hire Reese Norris, one of the most prominent attorneys here in Connecticut, and I ask you to fight these sanctions, where do you see holes? Where's the NCAA liable, not liable, but vulnerable? If you were to say as a family, wait a second, guys, this is too draconian, let's take a look at this, how would you argue this case for the Paterno family?
Well, for the Paterno family, I don't think you can argue it. I mean, you'd have to argue it for the university.
The Paterno family is... Well, give me something for the university.
Right. I mean, for the university, I think, you know, they have to fall on the sword. They may say, listen, you're punishing innocent people, but then the argument is, look at all the innocent people who have been victimized by this cover-up. I think this is a hard case to argue on behalf of Penn State, especially in light of Judge Freeh's report. He has tremendous integrity. He was thorough. They commissioned the report. Right. Let's not forget that. Right. They commissioned it.
$6.5 million commission.
Absolutely.
Too.
And it was a damning one. And you can only believe that this is a man of integrity who says, I'm going to call it as I see it.
But from a legal standpoint, this was one man's report, no different than a prosecutor who goes to court and says, I'm charging Scott Gray. There's still a defense to make. I want to hear the defense. There's got to be some defense that we're missing from Penn State's side that's not getting its fair share right now.
Well, I think, and the attorneys for Penn State very well may choose to appeal. I have not heard that.
Right. Is there anything you can think of at all where they can say, here's at least some consideration to soften this penalty? We're not saying we weren't culpable. We're saying that this penalty was too stiff. Is there any case to make that this was overkill?
You can argue that, but NCAA has the discretion to impose what they feel is a righteous punishment for an unprecedented, egregious behavior.
Stan, how can you, I mean, where would overkill come in this case? I mean, are there innocent people who are being punished?
Well, how about those ball players who played from 1998 to...
community at Penn State was compliant in this. The entire campus community.
But not the players. That
entire community. The players aren't being punished, Stan.
Well, their wins are being wiped off, which those guys who played in those teams, they're saying basically those wins don't happen anymore.
But the entire campus community at Penn State was compliant. It was that community that allowed this program and this coach to develop that much power. I mean, how powerful can a guy be? The four most powerful people on campus came down in this case, and he was the last one to go. He was so insulated. The president of the university, chancellor, the athletic director all went before him.
You know why, don't you? Because Penn State generated $50 million a year.
$60 million a year.
That's why he had the juice.
That's right, and that's way too much power for any man to have. And I think one of the things that we're going to see now, Stan, is how many college presidents now, college and university presidents, are going to want to tie their jobs, their futures, their careers to a coach with so much power that he runs roughshod over them. You're going to start seeing a lot of transparency within athletic programs on campuses.
A message was sent, right?
A message was sent. You're not going to see that kind of power, I don't think, among college coaches anymore.
Interesting. In about minute 30, Reese, liability. Let's go to the fraternal family. We know that Penn State has their lawyers. There's going to be a lot of money paid out in civil lawsuits. How vulnerable are you if you're the fraternal family in that estate from a civil standpoint?
I think you are vulnerable.
Really?
Clearly. And there's no insurance that's going to cover this. You are vulnerable, and the estate very well may have to even go bankrupt. I mean, I can imagine the claims here would be so substantial that notwithstanding how many millions of dollars that estate has, it's not going to be enough to cover the damages in this case.
All right, bizarre story, fascinating story. Legacy that has been tarnished, these victims who have been damaged for life. Reese Norris, we have about 10 seconds.
Okay,
Yep.
when you talk about
Can you do it in 10 seconds?
when you talk about innocent people being punished
Yes.
here, way too many innocent people have already been victimized to worry about innocent people being punished.
All right, you have the last word. What a surprise. You always have the last word. You're always stealing my thunder. Scott Gray,
Thanks for the mugs, Stan.
Enjoy the mugs. All right, folks. Thanks to all our guests again. Catch the show, ctnow.com/Stan. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. For the good folks here at Fox Connecticut, I'm Stan Simpson. The Morning News and Tim Lammers is next.